Reboot It!
Hey everyone, I'm Ron Swallow. Welcome to Reboot Rewind, the official after show for Reboot It. Today we have the whole crew here talking about He-Man. I'm pretty excited about it. We got Billy Business.
Yeah, I'm here. This is I love this episode, but oh boy, people did not love me in this episde. But
That's true.
I'm here. I'll take my public flogging.
That sounds good. We got Ed Greer.
Hey, what's up, man? And Billy, I think I'm gonna take a flogging for one of my failings later. So yeah, it'll be great all around. This is part of it. This is part of exhibiting our wares, but I think we did a damn fine job.
This is like a Reboot Rewind. We're releasing this around the holidays. This is like Festivus, the airing of grievances. So here we go.
And then we got producer Bill.
Hey everybody, I am not going to take a flogging for this episode. I think I was nothing but constructive and brilliant. So let's just bask in that.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, if you haven't figured it out already, we're obviously not live on this one. We're doing some pre-recorded ones for, Christmas time, basically, so we can get these out to you. But we're still going to answer your questions. We're still going to get into it. And let's talk about this. Let's talk about how when this came about, how did we decide to do He-Man? What were the thoughts when we decided to do this?
I want to say that this was one that I had my eye on early going into season 2. I think we've talked about this before on the rewinds, but originally we wanted Reboot It to sort of just be a limited series. It was sort of an experiment in crossing over our two podcasts. And I think that we just felt that mojo. And so towards the end of what became season 1, we said, all right, let's keep this thing going. And for me, He-Man was top of the list heading into season 2. I don't know about the rest of you guys.
I think every season there's one or two that you just like it's like SNL trying to get your sketches in. Like there's one or two where you just have to push and push. On the other side of it, there's one or two where you're just like, all right, fine. Like I'll take my wins and I'll let you have this one. So for me, He-Man was one where it's just like, look, I got my 2 in, so if He-Man is one that you guys must do, then sure, I'm not going to fight you.
And Ed?
I think the important part about He-Man for I think the whole group, but definitely me, I wanted to flex our newfound powers on something this ridiculous. I think for the most of the, correct me if I'm wrong, but for most of the reboots that we did earlier, it wasn't a property that was this ridiculous on its face. And we didn't have as much complex juggling of like, how ridiculous do we let this be? How do we compensate for it? Do we compensate for it? What parts of its luckiness is a virtue? So on and so forth. So I wanted to test our skills on something that would make us make those decisions.
Yeah, I think if you look at the history of where we were in Reboot It, we had basically done nothing but the top of the heap franchises through season 1. And then in season 2, we had done Green Lantern, Superman, Lord of the Rings. And so this was really the first time we stretched ourselves to do comedy, to do a less than beloved property, and to revive something that was basically dead as a doornail by the time that we came around to reboot it. So this was a little bit of a soft milestone, I think, for us.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, and the funny thing is, to us, it was so dead, but concurrently with us doing it, Kevin Smith's working on an animated version. These guys are working on this one. Famously, some people in the nerd community have their own He-Man pitches knocking around in their head. So to a lot of our audience, it wasn't dead as Dillinger. It was like this live party that they've been in attendance to. And boy, when we busted it in with our peacocking on the concept, they were just like, these assholes, get these dudes out of our party. That, especially Billy, you got it the most.
We'll get into that. We'll get into that for sure. We're definitely going to talk about that a little bit. But before we do that, I just wanted to say we shot this one back to back on the same day as Lord of the Rings. I remember doing that. Do you think that had any impact on the episode, or did not?
Oh, totally. Look, when we started with Lord of the Rings, this was, doing a reboot more than one in a day is really hard. And I think nowadays, like it's rare. We'll only do it like once a season where we double up. But when you start with maybe the most prolific fantasy novel of all time. And then right afterwards, you do like a kind of a silly Hanna-Barbera fantasy. It's almost like the dichotomy of the two. It's hilarious. Like I don't even think we thought about the fact that we were going to do these two properties back to back. So I do wonder, like, if we had come into He-Man a little, even by itself, if we had done would we have come to the same conclusion? Maybe. But it's almost like once you do Lord of the Rings, it's like there was something in me that was like, we can't do the same thing. Like, come on, we are looking at them right here. This is not the same thing. Like, you have to approach this differently.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
Yeah, absolutely, 100% agree. I think we went an interesting way on this. I rewatched it. And I got to be honest, I was pretty proud of myself in this one. Like sometimes I watch myself and I'm like, oh, Ron, why did you just say that? That's terrible. But like, I kind of enjoyed where we went, where all of us went, honestly. Like, and I know a lot of people take this seriously and I get it. You take the things from your childhood pretty seriously sometimes. But I think we also have to be able to step back and be like, let's take a look at what we're actually working with. And I think we did that, and that it was a benefit to what we were doing. Like, by making He-Man kind of funny and kind of making fun of the idea of this group of people doing the crazy stuff they were doing, I think we did a good job because of it, because being able to step back from it.
Yeah, I think this is the funnest episode we've ever done. And honestly, like, it's almost a lightning in a bottle episode in retrospect, because truth be told, and you probably could tell, like, even season 3, the next season, like, I tried to put in an episode that I thought would maybe get us like to be silly and loose and kind of, whatever. And it ended up being like super poignant, which with Cars, I was like, oh, like it'll be like He-Man where we can take the piss out of it and it'll be so fun. And it'll be kind of more like an improv game than it will even like a real episode. And it just didn't happen that way. And that's not to say that our pitch for He-Man was any less valid than it was, but it was like, this truly, it was like lightning in a bottle. It's easily the most fun I've had doing a rebooted episode.
All right, well, let's get to it. Oh, go ahead, Bill.
Well, I was just going to say, I think it's worth keeping in mind, because so much of the pushback that we got on this episode was about how we didn't take it seriously enough, or, the fact that we treated it so tongue-in-cheek and I'm not going to say made fun of it, but turned it into a little bit of a comedy. In a weird way, it's kind of the same argument that will come up in our Twilight rewind, which is sort of hanging over us like an albatross that we need to get to. But that idea of, like, if something has never had, the proper big screen treatment, which I know Twilight had, but for this one, I think so many people feel like we can't start getting meta and weird with this until we do it justice, until we give it like the most pathos-driven, sort of true to the mythos version. And I'm just going to say up front, like, I think that's misguided. I don't think that just because something hasn't been given, the most worthy treatment ever on the big screen, that's the thing you have to do. So you were mentioning something about it before Billy talked there, Ron, just that idea that, it is, yes, there's fans who want to see this be taken more seriously. I would just throw out early in this episode, I don't know that they're right. And maybe that's something we can come back to.
Yeah, absolutely. I 100% agree. Well, let's get to the pitch, huh? Here's what we came up with. We start on Eternia, a sort of cartoon world where a constant squabble between Skeletor and He-Man / Prince Adam to reunite the two sides of the Sword of Power results in the destruction of people's villages, helping no one. Skeletor thinks there should be a revolution from the rule by birth method, but villagers just don't want their huts crushed by boulders. Teela and Man-at-Arms are tiny voices of reason that are completely ignored. She-Ra shows up running from Hordak, and now Eternia sees true evil with Hordak and is now in real danger. She-Ra sees how ridiculous He-Man is and teaches him how to lead slowly but surely. In a twist, Skeletor realizes he's not as evil as Hordak, and eventually both He-Man and him give their sides of the Sword of Power to She-Ra. She combines them, and then all three fight off Hordak together, and she goes back to Etheria. Peace returns to Eternia. Skeletor and He-Man return to their squabble without all the side destruction and with a bit of a wink at each other. Let's see, cast. This one was a great cast, by the way. I was super pleased with this one. It made me laugh the entire time rewatching it today. Prince Adam / He-Man, which is Channing Tatum / John Cena.
So great. So great.
Brilliant.
I remember too the fun of the discovery and the fact that I didn't know these characters was when I was literally Google searching while we were watching, and I was like, guys, it's the same character. Why does he transform? He looks exactly the same. And I think putting that in the movie and that casting is just perfect.
Yeah, it was awesome. Then for Skeletor, we got Aziz Ansari, which is, again, beautiful. For Man-at-Arms, we went with Nick Offerman because he's got a great mustache. Also beautiful. Orko John Mulaney. Evil-lyn, we went with Olivia Wilde or Olivia Munn. And at one point, Evil-lyn, by the way, decides that Skeletor is not evil enough and joins Hordak, which I thought was hilarious. That was Bill's idea. Yeah, it was wonderful. Then with we got Hordak, voiced by Keith David. Now with Teela and She-Ra, we kind of like couldn't quite decide. At one point, we were thinking about Ali Wong for Teela. But then we brought in Karen Gillian and Zoe Saldana as a possibility for either Teela, She-Ra as well. And we even suggested Olivia Wilde possibly as She-Ra. I don't think any of those would have been bad. And then most importantly, directed by Lord and Miller.
It had to be.
Yeah, there was no choice. And nobody even argued or suggested another duo for director. So now, Billy, big important question.
Yeah.
Do you regret the approach you took to this episode?
This was one where I'd said before I didn't know, and I thought because we, on Screen Junkies way back in the day, there, with movie fights, there were some where it was like, oh, it'll be funnier if they don't know what this is or whatever. So I was like, oh, this could be a fun twist or whatever. If I'm discovering, I'm the exec in the room that doesn't know anything. I was very flippant about it, some for comedic purposes and some, it's just like when I say it's dumb, I think I didn't do a very good job of posturing that, like, just because I thought something was dumb, I kind of meant like this is silly. It's, it's not like I didn't mean it mean-spirited, but it came off that way. So it's like, do I regret it? I don't regret the decision to like kind of come at it blind. Do I regret maybe that, like it really upset some people? Sure, I don't want anyone to be like actively angry while watching it. But it was like, I don't think we would get to, not to say like I'm the crux of this episode by any stretch, but I will say I don't think we would have come to some of these conclusions if I wasn't here being like, guys, how do you not see what is right in front of us? This is ridiculous.
Yeah, well, I think I find it telling though that like me and Billy are a lot of times playing the same game but on different difficulty level. Like he is like, yeah, He-Man's dumb. That's an easy difficulty. I'm like, Star Wars is dumb. That's a hard difficulty. And people start coming out of your enemies are tougher. You know what I mean? As they come out of the woodworks to smack you up for what you said. And I got to say, like, you did identify correctly. Because I don't know that I would have been like, yeah, he's got to be a real barbarian. Because I'm saving that for the Conan pitch that I'm gonna make us do in season 3 or 4 or whatever. You know what I mean? So that's what it is. But like, I agree that to take this seriously is to confuse nostalgia with actual story value. These two things are different things. You know what I mean? And some things need a turbo boost. We'll get to that one later. Certain things need an infusion of modern ideals. A lot of things, frankly, need that. And this was just one of those. And Lord and Miller, got to thank him for like popularizing the satirists' look at action properties or cop property stuff like that. That was a new wrinkle. Thank them.
You know what? I'm going to make an argument right here, right now, for you people who got mad at Billy about this. All of those cartoons are bad. every single Hanna-Barbera cartoon, almost every single one of them, if you go back and rewatch them, they're not good. They're made to sell things. I think maybe the Flintstones might be funny from time to time. But for the most part, they're bad.
Well, this was Filmation.
Yes, it's worth saying.
This is Filmation, not Hanna-Barbera.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Hanna-Barbera is legitimately an iconic animation company. Filmation were shills to sell toys. Let's just keep that straight.
Yeah, I did get it confused.
And that's not even saying that the Hanna-Barbera... that's not even saying that the Hanna-Barbera cartoons are objectively good, because that's definitely not true of all of them. Yeah. But look, the reality is He-Man has really become more of a meme than a character. Like, there's inherent pop culture value in the ridiculousness of He-Man. And I'm going to take it back to something Billy brought up in the context of our Knight Rider episode when he was talking about Kiss and Kiss going out on their reunion tour. He-Man was never the thing that any of us remember in our heads. And like, I say that, here, look, this is I forgot this guy's name. I have a whole box of toys. I mean, literally, a whole box of toys here at my parents' house where I'm visiting for the holidays. They're all He-Man toys. I was more in the bag for this than anybody. The reality is, He-Man was never the epic saga that my 5-year-old brain turned it into. And so I think that looking back, you have one of two choices. You could either totally confabulate it into something that fits what my 5-year-old brain thought, or you can embrace what it actually is in modern pop culture. And I think that we did the latter. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
I don't either. In fact, I guess that pretty much answers the normal next question, which is, how do you think we did?
Again, I think this is like, if I'm the barometer of like, would I pay money to go see this? Because clearly I wouldn't watch He-Man before this. Like, it's a great comedy that actually has like a very mature theme buried in there pretty deep. You know, like I think it's like, honestly, my favorite episode. And that's saying something, because you also have to keep in mind, this is the third or fourth episode that we ever did at home. Like, quarantine had just started. You know, we kind of were still getting, like, Superman and Green Lantern are a little hard for me to watch, only because, like, you could tell we're trying to figure out a little bit how to do this show remotely. And it's like, oh, sorry, your internet's lagging. Is it my turn? Do you talk? So it's like
recording this on an iPad and it fell over. You know, stuff
things like that used to happen.
We literally changed the show. Like, it's crazy to me now that this show is more quarantine edition than the regular. Like, the regular ones now are the standout episodes. So I think this is one of our best ones. Again, I said it before and I'll say it again. This was lightning in a bottle. I hope we capture something similar to this. I've tried to manufacture it and it didn't happen. And I think that makes this one even better.
Yeah. Well, I loved watching it. It made me laugh the entire time. And I think that's one of the key things is, like, we get caught up because we are all creative people who really do want to make good, compelling stories that make people feel something. Like, that's all important to all of us. But sometimes this is also a show where we are funny and have a good time with each other because we're all friends. So, like, that, I feel like He-Man was the perfect combo of all of that. Go ahead.
And just the thing I wanted to say is, okay, let's posit the world, right? Let's posit the world where we dug our heels in and made a good old sword and sandals-y thing, and we made the sword really mean something to the point where little kids would cry over opening up this sword on Christmas, type of just, you know, made a little kids movie. Imagine that we did that. We sacrificed another generic chosen one saga for something vastly more interesting.
Yeah,
we're talking about exchange rate, right? We're talking about exchange rate here. We did something infinitely more valuable to the overall discourse in regards to this stuff. We had something that was, as we quoted in the episode, a sugar-coated topping. And to Billy's point, that's when you have a nice little melody and all you got to do is throw the bass under it. That's a different proposition. And that's what we had, and that we had a nice framework to just add one layer of meaning under this. It's so shallow that if you had one layer of meaning, next thing you know, you got a transformative comedy.
I'm going to go one further than you, Ed. I mean, I want to say we came up with a story structure that I don't know if I've ever seen before in a movie. This whole idea that we're starting in this satirical world where these sort of aloof, powerful people are going through this conflict, not caring about, the destruction that they cause, and then having sort of a gritty, grizzled, disturbing real war dropped on top of them, which puts everything that they're doing in perspective to allow them to learn some responsibility. And then those forces coming together to drive away the real evil and resetting what the status quo should be. Like, it's not a complicated setup, but it's very unique. I can't come up with a movie. Like, so often on this show, I feel like we can come up with it's this meets this. I can't do that with our He-Man pitch in a great way.
The closest I could think of is like maybe Galaxy Quest, but again, it's maybe spiritually, like it'd probably make a great double feature, but still, yeah, I agree.
No, I would just want to throw out there, I watched it very recently, and I know Ron is very modest, but Ron's from the mouths of babes ass pitch of, yeah, just have She-Ra in there too, and then Hordak, and then everybody just overloaded with stuff. And Bill not smacking that, or me not smacking that down out of hand. It's so beautiful because I think you dug it because you love the irreverence of it, but like just that smacked the crappy sandwich of the Chosen One drama with a little bit more gravitas that we could have made, that snapped that sandwich out of our hand and put a T-bone steak in it instead. That suggestion, I think there's a whole different planet where Ron keeps that to himself, and we're talking for 30 minutes and the lightning doesn't get in the bottle.
100%.
Yeah,
100%.
Guys.
And I would just ask the viewer, just again, because I think that this is important to unpack. If this story was just Luke Skywalker, like if we just pitched a He-Man story that was basically the Luke Skywalker story with more sandals and furry loincloths, what do you get out of that? It's sort of like, John Carter being Flash Gordon, just played way more straight and therefore way more interesting because you're trying to make it so epic and modern and like such a, worthy movie. And nobody really cares because it's like you're just rehashing stuff you've already seen before.
Look, so far, I will say this. Every time I have had something that I thought that I wanted appear on screen, like some kind of nostalgia thing, it's almost always disappointed me. Because it's hard to ever get to the nostalgia you want out of a thing. Even with like Avengers and stuff, I loved those movies, but that wasn't nostalgia for me. That was bringing to life characters that I've already liked in a different way. So, I mean, I feel like that's kind of what we did here. And so let's get into these comments before we, blow each other to completion.
Well, the trap drop.
He's here to do that for you.
I'm gonna give you a blowy. I'm trap jaw.
Why don't we just name him Blow Me? Okay. So we're gonna look at some of the questions and comments you guys, the Reboot It community, left for us. So here's what we got. We got Doug Harris, Mark Riley, and Christian Harloff said it best. Masters of the Universe needs to be Star Wars meets Lord of the Rings.
So here's the thing. I don't really know Mark Riley. I think Christian Harloff's great. I respect him. And that's certainly, I think, where a lot of the fans came, was exactly that viewpoint. And I'm telling you, as the lover of some very, very silly, stupid things, go watch the Power Rangers episode. I wanted that for Power Rangers. I was like, finally, we're going to take this seriously. Be careful what you wish for, because I got it in 2017 and it sucked. Like, taking the Power Rangers seriously sucked, and it was no fun, and it just made me think like, oh wow, like I think I love this show still to this day because it's corny and cheesy and silly and dumb and stupid. But when you try to give this fake reverence and gravitas that it does not deserve at all, it's horrible. And I know some people like that movie, but like as a mega Power Rangers fan, that movie is the perfect example of me of like, just because it means a lot to you does not mean that it has to be taken uber seriously, because it was no fun. And I would hate for a big He-Man fan to like get that same Power Rangers 2017 treatment, because it's like, be careful what you wish for. That's all I have to say about that.
Well, and it's also such a well-worn pitch. It's almost like Reed Richards played by frickin' John Krasinski and Sue Richards played by his wife Emily Blunt. It's like everybody's run that picture to the ground. So you want us, the reboot crew, to do something that Christian has probably been talking about forever, and guys like that have pitched in their minds forever. You want us to do that pitch over on our show? Why? Why would anybody desire that?
I've got one thing to say, and that's that, you know what Star Wars meets Lord of the Rings is? The Highlander.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong.
There's a variance. It's like there's a ballpark. It's in there.
But to that point, Ron, can I also say that Star Wars meets Lord of the Rings is not a pitch?
No.
For that very reason, it could be everything from Highlander to John Carter to actual Star Wars, because there's a lot of Lord of the Rings in there.
Absolutely.
It's like that's such a broad, non-specific, just easy Hollywood. I'm going to take two really successful franchises that already feel like of a piece with each other and just say we're going to mash them up. Like, that doesn't accomplish anything creative.
And like for years, David Fincher Batman was like something you could say to each other in a speakeasy and get a special jack each other off handshake or something. Big deal. I was on that train until I saw it in action with Batman walking past a bunch of cops to go have a cup of coffee with everybody while we all look at the dead body. And I just wanted to I wanted to Joe Chill myself. I'm like, this is awful. You know what I mean? So you're right.
Get back from your opinions about Batman and maybe.
I'm just saying.
But again, look, I think the point
pitches aren't good.
Sure, but the point is, I get it. A lot of fans came into this episode thinking exactly that, Ed, that we were going to take that and basically stretch that platitude into 90 minutes, and it just didn't happen. And I'm not interested in that. And honestly, take it from just a burned Power Rangers fan. I don't think that's what you actually want. I promise you, it's not.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, all I want to say is I don't want anybody out there. Like, I think I read some comments where it was like, it was obvious that I liked it, but I allowed us to do this stuff to it or whatever. And the thing is, because I'm not wedded to any of this. No matter how much you like something, no matter how much you liked it when you were 4 or whatever, that has nothing to do with the job that we have at hand. And I think the fact that we take that seriously, and I just want to say this unequivocally, if you weren't so flippant about it, we still would have ended up with more of a comedy than like us trying to make a real sword and sandals thing, man. Because there isn't enough there, dude. This was the way. Mandalorian. This was the way.
And I'm just going to co-sign that by showing you this is He-Man from the rebooted animated series. I had these action figures. That's how deep in the bag I was for He-Man. And I still had no problem with what we did with this property. Mm-hmm. And that, I think, is a healthy approach to the creative process.
Absolutely.
I'm sure there's more we could all say on this, but let's get to the next comment. Huh? I'm now a charge. Ha! Okay, sorry.
That's the rapid fire. Let's get into it.
Right. We got DCSC. That's the name of the person. I assume that their parents named them that because they didn't want to spell. The 2009 He-Man reboot was excellent. You should give that animated series some credit. It was more mature and got into the lore. Can't wait for the Netflix version.
Again, I think there's multiple ways you can approach this, and that's not saying that taking a more mature theme is even wrong. It just wasn't right for what we were doing, and that's cool that there's other interpretations. This is the one that felt the best to us, and honestly, if that exists for you, then why wouldn't you want something completely different for the film?
Yeah.
Well, and more to the point, I don't think our pitch would work as a TV series either. Like, we specifically were pitching a movie that may or may not ever get a sequel, but is going to give you an incredibly satisfying experience in that one and done format. I would never say that our pitch would be applicable to, a 22 episode animated series, even a 10 episode Netflix animated series. I think it'd be stretching to do our pitch that way. So I think that same argument works in reverse. Just because it's very good, and frankly it is, that 2009, the way that they built out Skeletor's backstory and the backstory of the Kingdom of Eternia, like everything in that is really strong. That doesn't mean that they're giving you the template for a movie. They designed that to sustain a television series, not the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely. On top of that, I think we did what you guys really wanted, which is you wanted us to make Skeletor sort of a good guy. That's what you want. You've wanted that the entire time you've ever watched He-Man. It's what you've always kind of wanted, is to Skeletor to be kind of a good guy. I know, it's the truth. That's what you wanted. So we gave it to you.
I do think people though are like really hung up on wanting to see an origin story for Skeletor, which is what that 2009 series did. Like it gave that whole backstory of he bargained with his face with an all-powerful demon. I don't think a movie needs it, frankly.
No.
I mean,
just
shoot it in your head right now. Just shoot it in your head right now. It's goofy. Just like it's the camera swings around. He's got no face.
It's Nick Cage and Ghost Rider, baby. That's what you already got that beat. It's Nick Cage and Ghost Rider.
Right. 2007's classic Ghost Rider. Put some respect on it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's so. Yeah,
I'd like to give a compliment to Ed right now, by the way, just saying, like, you also did the same thing with Knight Rider, by the way, a thing that you kind of wanted to take seriously, but then when you started listening and thinking about it, we're willing to take a step back and be like, okay, let's do this.
And I'll save it for when we eventually do the Knight Rider rewind, but I think that's why the first 20-ish minutes of Knight Rider reboot are really hard, because that's what it looks like when I try to acquiesce to the stupidness of a premise that is on its face silly. I tried so hard for your benefit to like, oh no, let's give this gravitas. And I was trying to do it for you, even though you're like, I don't want this. But I was like, no, I'm trying to be respectful. Sometimes it just doesn't work.
Well, and I will take this as well. That's kind of what I overdid with Twilight. We'll talk about this again as well. I took it a little too seriously. And I think that's one of the things we have to not do when we're doing these reboots, is we cannot take it so obsessively seriously. Because when we do that, we block each other for being creative, and that is the worst thing we could possibly do.
Absolutely. Just one of our main rules is no, or very few no buts. Even if you want to do no ands, even no ands, have those be parsed out smartly. Don't just throw those all around. We must create. We must have forward momentum. But I'll say, just as the third tease for the Knight Rider episode we're going to do, you infected me because I started saying stuff about like overarching world war plans using Kit's skin. Like what? Like no episode of it was ever that, and we got to what would be a large episode of the show.
I thought it to everybody, man. I was trying to avoid another He-Man but I had no poker face.
No, like I said. I think you may overestimate your acting ability in regards to trying to give it gravitas, because that was a little friction at the top. But anyway, but that's the fourth tease for this episode. To be continued in that one.
I'll say it. Go ahead, Ron. Next,
right. So the next one is from one of our I will call her a mega fan. She's shown up in the chat. Which, by the way, if you're not part of our chat, guys, when we do these live premieres, you're missing out, because we have a great time in those chats and we banter back and forth with you. This is one of the person who's always in them. Suze Vera, BDSM funny scene with tension between He-Man and Skeletor. like neither of them wants to admit they're into it. Love the Hordax dungeon idea. The cartoon war interrupted by a real one is so great. Maybe the credit scene is them knocking boots or awkwardly realizing they are both tops. Voice of Hordak. Sir Pat Stew or the DM from Critical Role. Nice.
I mean, it's all funny. It got me to laugh. So, I'd say, look, at this point, if we're going so bananas into this, Sure, why not? I think it's funny.
Guys,
it's part of the sequel.
The only
could
reason they've been
definitely-
fighting is they couldn't admit their love for each other. I love it. That's great.
How hilarious would it be to watch John Cena make out with a skull?
Oh my god, he
Yeah.
is so funny. If you watch Trainwreck, when he's having sex with Amy Schumer, is maybe one of the funniest scenes in a Judd Apatow movie, bar none. It is hysterical.
And then with Aziz Ansari just going, this is so great. Do it on Siri's voice. You do it great, Billy.
Oh my god, it's so great! You're so talking, I love it. Oh.
That's what I'm talking about. All right, we got Roger. He said, this was hilarious. Hated this particular take on the IP, but loved watching you come up with it. The one thing I did like was Ed's idea of holding Battle Cat to the final battle. Great movie moment. Can't wait to see the next one. Thanks.
Can I say, we get a lot of praise on a lot of our episodes, and I'm so appreciative when people love what we do. This is probably my favorite type of comment, though, which is great show. Absolutely hated everything you said, but I loved watching you do it. That to me is the best compliment, because it's you don't agree with anything I said, but just the way that we worked together, the energy and everything was enough to not only keep you watching it, but enjoy watching something that you're actively no, I don't like that. I wouldn't do that. That's to me a bigger compliment, a better compliment, even than just blowing us to completion.
He's back.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh,
He's back, yeah.
I agree with
You
that.
got a little something in your trap jaw.
I agree with that, Billy. I love the fact that because so much of what we're doing here is trying to encourage people to give left field takes a chance. And so when we see the audience embracing that, this is not what I would do. This is not what I would ever come up with. This is not anything that I think I would even go see. But I love watching the process. Those are terrific comments. Love those.
And
I got to be honest. Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say one thing. To be very clear and frank, I don't know that our function is to give you what you would see at the Cineplex. I think our function is to give you what you wish. Some of you wish they'd be brave enough to put in the Cineplex. I think that's kind of what our function actually is, because there's many people out there who are just ready to write 15 drafts of the guy finds the sword and a stone and then he breaks it and then he climbs the mountain to the top and he meets a lady. There's a bunch of people out there willing to feed you that crap. We're over here making the gourmet shit.
Look, guys, I'm going to have to push back on you on this one. I think Roger is using the game to try to pick us up and that this was just an egg. Sorry, Roger. We're not falling for it. We ain't going to blow you to completion.
We are not monetizing this episode. Forget it.
All right, we got Jacob Blonde. Ed goes again, slipping a giant woman in the script. He's more like Tom Peters with Spider.
I love this comment.
Perfect.
I remember us. Wait, let me just say. I remember us talking about this off air. This particular comment, and I remember Ed at the time being very aggrieved by it. Ed was like, "I don't know what this MFer's talking about. Come on." But it was 100% the second or third time in the first 1.5 seasons of Rebooted where Ed is like, we need to get us a 6-foot+ woman in this movie for X whatever role.
Pretty great. It's pretty Ed. It's very perfect.
I just think it's one of those things where we just find these things where we have these super heroic people and stuff, and people have been clamoring for a while to see if these beefcakes can act and stuff. So I think I'm a consistent beefcake. If you are a CrossFitter out there with some terrible headshots, hit my agency up. I'll try to get you the mascara. You know what I mean? I think that I'm the plug. I'm the pipeline for the big ladies who, they didn't take Stanislavski, but boy, did they do a lot of dips. Or you know
Fair enough, man. Fair enough. Maybe they did both, Ed. Maybe they did
and
both.
the ones that did both, just all I'm saying, I'm gonna leave you with this: woman Schwarzenegger equals money, many money signs. So Gina Carano flopped. She got drafted about 2007. She busted out of the league. She sucks. I don't like her. So let's try to get that pipeline going. Let's try to get more and more until we get a hit. We get us a Lady Schwarzenegger. We're printing money forever.
Yep.
Okay.
So we got Pablo. He said, well, after listening to the full show, I must admit there were interesting opinions from people who know the brand. Except for Billy and his ignorance about the brand, it was great.
Read the next one. That's they're
Also,
together.
yeah, I'll read the next one too. From Mick, you missed your shot at finding a bigger audience. Having done the research to do this right would have made this video super shared. Pixel Dan has been making his mortgage payment for the last 11 I assume this is how the guy is talking when he says it. Pixel Dan has been making his mortgage payment for the last 11 to 15 years, now in a bigger house, from reviewing Masters of the Universe action figures. ... You start with Billy saying, this is stupid. Through the thumbnail tags and title, you will get He-Man fans through the door, and you start off by telling them the thing they love and spend thousands of dollars a year on is stupid. Fans of whatever, more ... ellipsis. People don't know how to use it.
But this is a huge thread, and I'm just
you cut some
picking.
of it out.
Yeah,
Okay.
go ahead.
Fans of whatever you put in the thumbnail are going to eventually find your video. Start off insulting them is a bad move. Hanging a lantern on Billy having no knowledge of the subject matter does not make him saying this is stupid any less insulting. And it doesn't matter what happens later in this video or in other videos, you have lost that person forever. Bye, Mick. Good. I'll just say it. Maybe Billy's going to be nicer about it, but Mick, you can F right off. I think you suck as a person. You spent 45 minutes writing out a mean, ugly message about He-Man. About He-Man. Everybody else is gonna be nicer than me, but me, I think you're ridiculous. The other guy, Jacob or Pablo, whatever. That's fine. You know, he didn't spend a long dissertation telling us about the importance of how serious we take He-Man. Okay, go on.
I definitely want to jump in on this, but Billy, it was addressed to you, so you should go first.
You guys speak and then give me some runway. So go ahead.
Here's my. I'm gonna go a little bit harder than Ron because this wasn't a mean comment. He was being constructive. He was giving us concerned feedback to help us succeed in life. You condescending, you absolute full of yourself jackass. And listen, I know from full of yourself jackasses. I know. I'm just saying. You are going to show up here to defend Pixel Dan's honor, first of all, who none of us have any idea who he is. And by the way, that's okay because you are so defined by your fandom for this ridiculous franchise. Again, I've got all the toys right here. I think they're awesome. Mosquitor, all day, baby. That doesn't mean that I have any right to be insulted if somebody calls He-Man dumb. You absolute snowflake. I'm done.
All right. That was fun.
All I'm going to say is I'm sorry to have done battle damage to your chess piece with our take. I'm sorry to have done that. And I think calling us challenging entertainment maybe is a stretch, but if we're too challenging for you in this regard, that's just so weird. Because all I'll say is, again, exchange rate. We could do what's in everyone's head, or we could do what's in our heads. Over the course of time, doing what's in our heads, I think, will bear more fruit and be more interesting as this whole enterprise is a thought experiment. So I will defer to Billy's treatise. Go ahead, Billy.
I'm going full for this one. Now, look, I read this at the time, and I was pretty heated. And before I even get to that one, go back to Pablo for a second. Go back and look. Pablo and I went back and forth a couple times, and by the end, we kind of found this common ground where he even said something like, "Sorry, man, I've been in lockdown for a while now, and I'm just kind of going crazy." I get it. So for this fan, look, I've said it before, but I need to make very clear, like no bones about it. When I call something dumb and silly and stupid, and even if I'm being very flippant about it, look around. Those are all prequel toys. Those are from the prequels. Those aren't even like from the original trilogy. Those are prequel toys. I love Power Rangers. It is silly. It is stupid. It is dumb. It makes no sense. It's borderline insulting to the intelligence. But I love it. And it means something to me. So, look, here's the thing. You made a lot of points. We are not a He-Man channel. We're never going to be a He-Man channel. So let's take that out of it. I will say this. If you came to the episode as a He-Man fan, and within the first 5 minutes, my flippant way of speaking about He-Man disappointed you, made you want to click out, made you upset, or made you angry, I'm sorry. Because I don't want you to come to our show and feel that way. That's not what I'm about, personally. Meet me in the middle. That's what I'm asking. You are clearly a big He-Man fan, and there's a lot of you. I'm not even speaking just to this guy. I'm talking to all kinds of people that came in, all kinds of fans of this. You are fans of this product. Even if I didn't mean it in a lovingly kind of joking, silly way, if I truly meant this is the dumbest, stupidest thing I've ever seen in my life, I'm angry that it exists. I'm not saying that has a reflection on you. I'm asking you to remove that part of you liking something from who you are as a person. I'm not attacking you because I don't know you. You don't know me, and I don't know you. So meet me halfway. Don't take it personally because I'm not trying to attack you personally. But if you came to this episode as a huge He-Man fan and I am the reason that you clicked out, then I apologize. I'm sorry that you didn't have fun because that's all I was trying to do was to have fun. That's all I'm ever trying to do is to entertain and have fun. And I'm sorry I disappointed you. And that's all I'm going to say about that.
You're so nice. I thought I was supposed to be the heart here. That was all heart, Billy. That was good. And we really don't try to hurt anybody's feelings. We're not trying to be mean to you guys or mean to the things you love. We are trying to be creative and respectful, but at the same time come up with something interesting that people would love to watch and that we would love to watch. And I think we did that on He-Man. What do you guys think?
Totally agreed. I also love that Billy has now given us what should be a recurring meme. We're talking about the prequels, man. We're talking about the prequels.
These are prequel toys.
So I think we all feel like it was a good episode. And I just want to say this before we say actual goodbyes. Thank you all for showing up every Saturday, watching us be creative, commenting on it, coming up with ideas. Thank you for being against our ideas when you are against them. Thank you for all the love that you guys give us. We really appreciate it, especially in these trying times. It feels great to have people paying attention to what we do, but also getting it pumped up as we are about what we do as well. So we're for Ed Greer, producer Bill, and Billy Business. That was our Reboot Rewind, and we want to say thank you for watching and be part of this really special community we built here. We'll see y'all next time. Bye.